I also recommend that you bring your various advisors together regularly for brainstorming sessions. While this may seem obvious, many business owners consult their advisors independently. The best way to leverage your advisor's education and experience is to get them together and learn how each approaches an opportunity or challenge and how they bounce ideas off each other. In the end, it is of much greater benefit to you. You are still the leader and ultimately responsible for your company. Street smarts. Even with my education and my experience in public accounting, there was still plenty to learn from real-life business experience. There is nothing like learning from your mistakes to realize how much there is to know in building and running a successful business. It just makes you realize how important it is to build the right team around you. As Rich Dad said, it is not only what you know, but who you know. When you encounter a problem in business, it is a great relief to know who to call for instant assistance. It is through cooperation and collaboration that the successful businesses of tomorrow will be built. TEAMSMARTS. The combination of school smarts and street smarts will help you build a successful business. But, team smarts, is the true formula of success. It combines school smarts and street smarts from your entire team. All of your team's shared education and experience combined to work on your business collaboratively will surely propel your business forward. Oceanofpdf.com. Rich Dads. Entrepreneurial lesson number 5. The process is more important than the goal. Oceanofpdf.com. Chapter 5. Money Talks. Success. We were rich for 6 months, I said. Money was pouring in, and then the roof caved in. Well, at least you were millionaires, even if it was only for 6 months, said Rich Dad, chuckling. Many people will never know what it feels like to be rich. Yes, and now I'm financially ruined, I whined. 6 months of success and years to pay it back. Well, at least you had a taste of the good life. Rich Dad smiled, doing his best to cheer me up. Most people will never know what it feels like to build an international business and be an international success. Most people will never know what it feels like to have money pouring in the door. And most people will never know what it feels like to be an international failure with money pouring out the door, I said, now beginning to laugh. So why are you laughing? Asked Rich Dad. I don't really know, I replied. I guess I am laughing because as painful as it is right now, I would not trade this experience for anything. As you said, I caught a glimpse of a different world, a world very few people will ever see, a world I would like to see again. It was all so very exciting, for a while. Rich Dad leaned back in his chair. For a long period of time, he seemed to sit there silently reflecting upon his life, the battles won and battles lost. Finally he came out of his thoughts and said, most people dash from home to work seeking security from this world. For many, work and home are where they hide from the harsh realities of a competitive world. All they want is a steady paycheck and a place to call home away from home. Rich Dad again paused and then said, and others seek something else. You mean something more than just security and money? I asked. With a wistful look in his eye, Rich Dad said, yes. If all I wanted was a secure job, a steady paycheck, and a home away from home, I would never have become an entrepreneur. And what were you looking for? I asked. Beyond security and money. A different world, a different way of living. As you know, I came from a very poor family. I wanted more than just a lot of money. I wanted more than just a big house and nice cars. I wanted a life few people ever live. I knew I faced greater chances of failing than succeeding. I knew there would be highs and lows as an entrepreneur. And like everyone else, I was concerned by the highs and lows. Yet, it was the thought of a different level of life that made the risks seem worthwhile. It was not just about making money, it was about a life's adventure. Rich Dad then stopped for a long moment, thinking his private thoughts. Finally continuing he said, when my life is over, I already know the highs and lows will become memories of just one great adventure, of deals won and deals lost, friends made and friends lost, and of money made and money lost. It will be memories of total strangers walking in your door, just to join you on your next adventure, and walking out your door once the adventure is over. And along the way, hopefully you find that place, a place with the quality and beauty of life you knew in your heart existed, you knew in your dreams would come true. And have you found your place? I asked. Rich Dad simply nodded and smiled contentedly. A glimpse of your future. With that, there really was not much more to talk about. I knew what I had to do. I had creditors to talk to, a business to repair and rebuild. I still had many things to learn, so I knew it was time to get back to work. Picking up my things, I shook Rich Dad's hand and headed for the door. "One more thing," said Rich Dad. Turning at the door, I asked, "And what is that?" "You know those 6 months when you were on top of the world?" "Yes, I do," I replied. "That was a glimpse of your future." "A glimpse," I repeated. "What do you mean, a glimpse of what future?" "In 1974, when you decided to follow my advice rather than your dad's, you began a journey, a process. The process has a beginning and an ending. It may take years, but it does have an ending. Someday this struggle you are in will suddenly end and a new life and new process will begin. You will win if you remain faithful to this process. During this current process, you will be given many more challenges and more lessons to learn. The process is testing you as well as teaching you. If you pass the test and learn the lesson, you get to go on to your next process. If you fail a test and quit rather than retake the test, the process spits you out. So those 6 months of the good life were giving you a glimpse of your future, a glimpse of the world you seek, a glimpse of a world that awaits you. A glimpse of your future and a way of saying to you, keep going. You're on the right track. It's giving you a shot of courage to face the process to come and the motivation to keep going in. To keep learning. And how do you know this? I asked. Did you also receive a glimpse of your future when you needed it? Once again, Rich Dad simply nodded and grinned. 10-year process. Rich Dad's lesson on the subject of process has proven to be a very important lesson in my life. Looking back, it seems that my personal processes ran in approximately 10-year cycles, with each 10-year cycle a different process. For example, 1. 1974 to 1984, the learning process. This is the period of time when I was learning the real-world skills of an entrepreneur. Classroom days were over and the business school of the streets was doing the teaching. I was making many big mistakes simply because I had a lot to learn. During this period of time, I was practicing my entrepreneurial skills building a company that manufactured nylon wallets in the Far East and marketed them throughout the world. We also designed merchandise products for rock bands such as Duran Duran, Van Halen, Judas Priest, Pink Floyd, and Boy George. At this time, I was learning as much as I could about all levels of the BI triangle. This was the real-world business school I referred to earlier in the book. 2. 1984 to 1994, the earning process. During this period of time, I began to make a lot of money as well as build a foundation of wealth. The lessons learned from the mistakes were paying off in money. Investing that money in real estate gave Kim and me not only a foundation of assets generating passive income but also more experience as real estate investors. During this period I was following my passion, which was to teach entrepreneurship and investing. Our company put on courses entitled the Business School for Entrepreneurs and the Business School for Investors. At this point, I was combining my poor dad's profession, teaching, with my rich dad's lessons on business and investing. This was also my time to advance my skills on the communication level of the BI triangle by learning to teach in ways far different from the traditional methods of teaching. As stated in a previous chapter, I had to decide which level one wanted to become an expert at. After learning the basics of all 5 levels, I decided that my best chance of developing my skills was at the communication level. By being the best I could be at this level, I would have a better chance of attracting a higher caliber of team members at the other levels. 3. 1994 to 2004, the giving back process. After Kim and I had enough money to survive on without working, I knew it was time to give back. In selling our education business, I took time to design a business that could teach my Rich Dad's lessons to more people at lower prices. That was the conception of the Rich Dad Company. Instead of teaching via seminars, that at times cost over $5,000 to attend, I decided to create the cash flow game. During this period of time, my focus shifted from making money to asking myself the question, how can I serve more people? Ironically, I have made more money focusing on serving more people rather than focusing on how to make more money. In 2004, Kim, Sharon, and I decided that we had taken the business to a point where we needed to bring in additional management to take it to the next level, and the business has much further to go. Our job as entrepreneurs is done. The 10-year cycles were not planned. It just seemed to happen that way. It was only when I looked back over my shoulder that I recognized the 10-year pattern. Catching up to my future. Today, I live the life I caught a glimpse of in 1978. The process had kept its promise to me. Who wants to be a millionaire? Lesson number 5. The process is more important than the goal. Most of us have heard that it is important to set goals. Yet Rich Dad had a different take on goals. He said, goals are important, but the process of obtaining the goal is far more important than the goal. Explaining, he would say, if you ask most people, who wants to be a millionaire? Most people would raise their hand. That would mean they have a goal of becoming a millionaire, but now they need to choose the process for achieving that goal. There are many ways a person can reach their goal of becoming a millionaire. Different processes to become a millionaire. Rich Dad said, the reason the process is more important than the goal is that the process determines who you become in attaining your goals. Some examples of this are: 1. You can become rich by inheriting money. But most of us know if we stand to inherit money, and finding a rich person willing to adopt you may prove quite difficult. 2. You can become rich by marrying for money. The problem is we all know who and what you become in the process. It is the oldest profession in the world. 3. You can become rich by being cheap. The problem is, if you become rich by being cheap, at the end of the process you are still cheap, and the world hates rich cheap people. In fact, the rich cheap people of the world give rich people a bad name. 4. You can become rich by being a crook. The problem is, at the end of the process you are a rich crook with crooked friends. Honest rich people do not like crooked rich people. 5. You can become rich by being lucky. There are many ways to be lucky when getting rich. You can be born with great talent, as many athletes and actors are, you can win the lottery, you can be born rich, or you can just happen to be in the right place at the right time. The problem is if you lose the money, you have to count on luck to get the money back. 6. You can become rich by becoming a smart entrepreneur. To become a rich entrepreneur you need to become a smart entrepreneur. The reason I like this process of becoming rich is that the process requires you to become smart, and becoming smart is much more important than making money. If you lose your money, this process will teach you how to get it back and become even smarter in the process. Money does not make you rich. Lottery prizes are often in the millions of dollars simply because there are millions of people who want to become rich by being lucky. I find it interesting that this process of getting rich is not only the riskiest of all methods with the worst odds of winning, it is a process that does not increase your financial intelligence at all. In fact, winning the lottery often reveals how low a person's financial intelligence really is. The following are recent stories from the MSN website about people who use the process of luck to become millionaires. 2-time lottery winner, living in a trailer. Winning the lottery isn't always what it's cracked up to be, says Evelyn Adams, who won the New Jersey lottery not just once, but twice 1985, 1986 to the tune of $5.4 million. Today the money is all gone and Adams lives in a trailer. I won the American dream but I lost it, too. It was a very hard fall. It's called rock bottom, says Adams. Everybody wanted my money. Everybody had their hand out. I never learned one simple word in the English language, no. I wish I had the chance to do it all over again. I'd be much smarter about it now, says Adams. A poor boy who got lucky. Ken Proxmire was a machinist when he won $1 million in the Michigan lottery. He moved to California and went into the car business with his brothers. Within 5 years, he had filed for bankruptcy. He was just a poor boy who got lucky, explains Ken's son Rick. Living on food stamps. William Bud Post won $16.2 million in the Pennsylvania lottery in 1988 but now lives on his Social Security. I wish it never happened. It was totally a nightmare, says Post. A former girlfriend successfully sued him for a share of his winnings. It wasn't his only lawsuit. A brother was arrested for hiring a hitman to kill him, hoping to inherit a share of the winnings. Other siblings pestered him until he agreed to invest in a car business and a restaurant in Sarasota, Florida, 2 ventures that brought no money back and further strained his relationship with his siblings. Post even spent time in jail for firing a gun over the head of a bill collector. Within a year he was $1 million in debt. He admits he was both foolish and careless, trying to please his family. Now he lives quietly on $450 a month and food stamps. What if you lost $1 billion? Years ago, a reporter asked Henry Ford, a billionaire when $1 billion was worth much more than it is today, what if you lost everything? Ford's response was, "I'd have it back in less than 5 years." When you contrast Henry Ford's response to the responses of the lottery winners, I believe you get the difference between the process of becoming a millionaire by luck and that of becoming a billionaire by being an entrepreneur. A question to think about. After reading about Henry Ford's response, I often ask myself, if I lost it all, how much would I recover in 5 years? If my past is any indicator, each time I hit zero, and I did hit zero a number of times, I came roaring back making much more money than I lost. I've not made $1 billion, as Henry Ford did, but my businesses have had income in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So the entrepreneur's process, in my opinion, is the best process to get rich because it is also an educational process to achieving great wealth, if you have the heart, mind, and stamina for it. Pouring the foundation. The educational process of becoming an entrepreneur requires the entrepreneur to learn and gain experience in the 5 levels of the BI triangle. Once a person becomes somewhat proficient in all 5 levels, life is pretty good. As stated earlier, it took me about 10 years as an undergraduate student of the business school of the streets to attain a basic level of proficiency. Can a person attain proficiency at all 5 levels faster? Absolutely. One of the reasons for writing this book was to simply inform you of the levels. If you know about the levels, it makes it easier to focus your learning activities and personal development, level by level. Why cash flow is the base level? Most want-to-be entrepreneurs focus on the product level, the top level of the BI triangle. While the product is important, looking at the BI triangle, you notice that cash flow is the base level with the most area allocated to it in the diagram. When I first started out as a professional entrepreneur, I used to get excited looking at new products or ideas. That is how I got caught up in the nylon wallet business. The nylon wallet was just one of about 50 different product ideas we considered. Some of the other ideas were wooden puzzles, sugar packets with Hawaiian pictures on the packets wrapped in a burlap box, a magazine, and even candy bullets packaged in a box that said, "Bite the bullet." As you can tell, our thinking ability was unlimited. As soon as we decided on the nylon wallet as our product, the 3 of us began designing its packaging. Again, this required thinking, which all 3 of us enjoyed. It was not long before we were hitting the streets looking for investors. Most potential investors were polite and took time to look at our product and its packaging. Then, if they were interested, they all asked the same questions. "May I see your numbers? What are your projections?" When we did not have them, we were turned down quickly. Even Rich Dad turned us down, but he did not turn us down politely. He was furious. Kicking my 2 partners out of his office, he closed the door behind them and gave me one of the most severe reprimands I have ever had from either of my dads. I have written about this incident in other books, so I will not retell the details of the story, yet the lesson is worth repeating. The lesson is, for successful business people and investors, the numbers are very important. Today, older, wiser, and much wealthier, whenever I am asked to evaluate a new product or business, I do the same thing those investors did to me years ago, I ask for the numbers. This does not mean I am any better at reading or producing numbers today than I was in 1978. The difference is I ask for them and then ask someone who is trained at reading the numbers to go over the numbers with me. My level of expertise is the communications level, and I do go over that portion of the business plan carefully. That I am pretty good at the communications level and not that good at the cash flow level is not an excuse for me to ignore the cash flow level, or any level for that matter. As an entrepreneur and an investor, I need to know the entire business, not just the parts of the business I am interested in. If a want-to-be entrepreneur asks to show me a new product, the first question I ask is, do you have financial projections? Or, if the business is an established business, I will ask, do you have financial statements? Again, I ask these questions not because I am great at numbers, I ask these questions as a test of the want-to-be entrepreneur's knowledge of what it takes to be an entrepreneur. If the want-to-be entrepreneur does have actual numbers or projections, I will ask someone like my partner Sharon, a trained CPA and a great entrepreneur, to come with me to interpret the numbers. The numbers tell a story, and I need someone who can read the numbers and interpret them to tell me the story. As an entrepreneur, I believe it is very important to tell your story in the numbers. Before you quit your job. If you are serious about becoming an entrepreneur, an interesting exercise is to hire an experienced accountant to help you with a proposed budget and cash flow analysis. The reason this is an important exercise, even if you do not go through with the product or the business, is that the exercise will give you a better idea of what it costs to start and run a business. Once you know your budget, you will have an idea of how much you will have to sell, the communications level, to support the business. The experienced accountant may also point out expenses you may not know about. I wish I had done this exercise before starting my nylon surfer wallet business. I might not have lost as much money as I did. The cost of hiring a trained accountant for guidance would be a drop in the bucket when compared to the money I lost. More important, the money you spend for an accountant will be priceless in your educational development as an entrepreneur. If you ask most accountants, I am certain they will tell you that most entrepreneurs lack knowledge of accounting laws and practices and are horrible at record keeping. Their lack of accuracy with numbers may eventually get them in trouble. It is this lack of knowledge that eventually costs them even more money. In other words, pay them a little early rather than pay them a lot more later. Why I created the board game. One of the primary reasons I created the cash flow board game is the reprimand my rich dad gave me back in the 1970s. For most of my life, Rich Dad had been emphasizing the importance of the numbers, and I sincerely thought I understood them. It was not until he chewed me out when I lost so much money that I began to understand why he put such emphasis on the numbers. Today I understand. The game serves as a communication bridge between you and your accountant. It will not make you an accountant. The game will give you the advantage of being more familiar with the thinking and a thinking logic of the accounting profession. If you are like me, weak at the subject of accounting and numbers, I strongly suggest you use the cash flow games as an educational tool. Please go to our website www.richdad.com and find out more about the cash flow game products and the cash flow clubs throughout the world. Again, before quitting your job to start your business, I strongly recommend that you sit down with an experienced accountant and go over a budget on what it may cost to start and operate your business. If the numbers shock you, simply take a deep breath and sleep on it for a night or two. Give yourself time to expand your mind around the costs. The cost of starting, building, or growing a business is often more than originally imagined. Keep your job. If your costs frighten you off, then maybe being an entrepreneur is not for you. High expenses are an everyday challenge in business. Taking on that challenge is one of the most important jobs of an entrepreneur. It requires a lot of A, T, P, and C thinking power to solve these challenges. Personally, I do not like the challenges, but every time I have taken them on, I have become a better, wiser, and more confident entrepreneur. Show math numbers. When want-to-be entrepreneurs call looking for money, they fall into two categories. They are 1. Those with a business plan and financial projections. 2. Those with nothing. If a person comes with empty hands, it either means they are very early in the process or they don't have a clue what they are doing, or both. Talking only about the product without financial projections indicates these people have not really thought through the process. If I am interested, I may suggest they go back to the drawing board, follow the BI triangle as an outline, and then hire an accountant and come up with a business plan, which includes a set of numbers. For those who want to learn more about how to write a business plan, Garrett Sutton has written the perfect book for you. It is the Rich Dad Advisor book, The ABCs of Writing Winning Business Plans, Warner Books. 1 Step to Raising Money. Whenever someone asks, how do I raise money for my business? I respond by asking, do you have a business plan? A good business plan with a great presentation can raise the money you need. A bad business plan with a poor presentation can lose you money. This does not mean that the numbers of the business plan are cast in stone. The financial results of most startup businesses do not typically follow the plan or precisely meet the projections. The process of creating a business plan with numbers is an A thinking and T thinking process that causes the entrepreneur to think through the venture in more detail and then put it down on paper. As stated in Chapter 1, a successful business is created before there is a business. This is the creation process put down on paper. The plan does not have to be elaborate. It can be very simple. A plan simply lets the potential investor see the thoughts inside the mind of the entrepreneur. Also, it allows the investor to know that the person is serious about the proposed business. Again, even if the business does not take shape, the process of thinking through the creation of a business, putting it down on paper, and matching it with numbers that tell the same story is an excellent educational process and reality check. It begins to balance school smarts and street smarts. Tell me a story. A number of years ago, a young man called me and asked for an appointment. When I asked for what purpose, he said, I have a business proposal I would like to present to you. Are you looking for investment money? I asked directly. He stumbled and haltingly said, yes, I am. Normally I do not look at businesses at this early stage, yet I was curious and agreed to meet him for lunch. A week later, I met him at a local restaurant. He was very well dressed and had an impressive-looking business plan. As I said, I am not good at reading the numbers, yet I do my best to listen to the story the numbers and the plan are telling me. The first thing I look at is the salary and wages line of the financial projections. For me, that is where the story begins. This young man had himself down for a $120,000 a year salary. My first question was, why do you need such a high salary from a business that does not exist? Well, that is what I am being paid at my job today, he replied, a little indignantly. Besides, I have a wife and 3 kids in school. It's the bare minimum I can live on. Okay, I said and continued looking at the business plan. As I said, the business plan and the financial projections tell a story. The salary requirement line was introducing me to the lead character, the hero of the story. I was gaining a glimpse into his brain, how he thought, how he spent money, and the priorities of his personal life. In my mind, seeing his salary requirements and getting into his head, I felt he was still thinking like an employee, looking for a high-paying job. As far as I was concerned, the lunch was over. I had seen enough just by getting to know the hero of the story to know that I did not want to invest in his business. The relationship between a financial statement and the BI triangle. Since we had not yet ordered lunch, and I still had to be polite, I looked next at the other expenses of the business and how they related to the BI triangle. In other words, my first step was to call on my P-thinking mind. I needed to get a sense of who this person was in front of me. My second step was to call on the C-thinking, A-thinking, and T-thinking minds and create a relationship between the financial statement and the 5 job levels of the BI triangle. The diagram in my mind looked like this. My next question was, what do you do for your current employer? What is your job? I am a mechanical engineer by training, he replied. I work in customer service, tracking customer orders through our system. That is where I developed my product. Let me tell you about it. Just a moment, I said. I just have a few questions about your projections. Pointing at the line entitled Advertising and Promotion, I asked. What is this expense for $10,000 a month? What is your marketing plan? Oh, I haven't given that much thought yet. My plan is to hire an agency and let them handle our marketing. Have you had much experience in sales or marketing? I asked. No, I haven't, he said. I've spent most of my career working on the internal systems of a business. That is where I got my idea for my new product. It will revolutionize order tracking. Have you talked to an intellectual property attorney to protect your idea? Well, I have looked but I really have not found one yet. In your plan, you only have $4,000 for attorney's fees. Why is that? Well, I wanted to keep my expenses down. Later on, when money comes in, then I'll hire more attorneys. For now, I think $4,000 is adequate to get me off the ground. And who helped you with these projections? I asked. I do not see a line for accounting expenses. Oh, you're right, I forgot that expense. How much do you think should be allocated to accounting fees? I don't know, I said. I'm not an accountant. If you really want to know, you should ask one. How do I find a good one? You can call my accountant, but he is very expensive and maybe more than you need at this stage. Oh, said the entrepreneur. I am trying to keep my expenses down. I'll look for a cheaper accountant. Heard enough of the story. Although this was hardly an in-depth look at the business, I had heard enough of the story. Eventually I did get a look at his product, which never should have happened if he had an intellectual property attorney's advice. He did not have me sign any document saying I would keep the product a secret, a big and clear indicator of this want-to-be entrepreneur's lack of real-world experience. My own lesson learned. If I had liked the product, I could have simply taken his idea and taken it to market. How do I know this? Painfully, I know this lesson because I had made the same mistake he was making. In 1977, I should have patented my nylon shoe pocket wallet for runners, but I decided to save a few dollars.